not necessarily fear of technology, or people just are getting into a system they don't know about. How can we possibly replace this whole thing in this period of time? But really, I mean, we could have everything set up in an hour.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Folks, we have got Scott Heric on the line, founder and CEO of Unionly. Teamsters represented Unionly. Scott, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So you wanted to talk. We wanted to talk some about some of the laws that have been either passed or have been kicked around in state legislatures across the country that are banning dues deduction from paychecks of workers. And so talk to us about some of those laws and how they are affecting unions in those states.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the most aggressive one we've seen is coming out of West Virginia, where it was just banned wholesale. And we've had the pleasure and honor of being able to help the West Virginia Fraternal Order of Police kind of recover from that. But there's been a lot of legislation around teachers specifically, and Florida and Indiana recently kind of made news. In Indiana, some of it passed. Florida, a lot of it is stalled or either dead. But it just seems like there's an increasing number of bills that are going through around payroll deduction specifically, or making it harder to join a union, or making it harder to check everything. And to me, overall, the theme is, if that's going to increase, which it clearly is, or even outside of state legislature, with the biggest union busting tactic being the cutting of payroll deduction of dues, why not get ahead of that and remove the biggest tactic and biggest weapon that employers have against unions, and have individual organizations set up their own dues systems? So I think, to me, as things shift in that direction, payroll deduction dues was established a long time ago. Awesome. But now, as things have changed, it seems like it needs to be a change in thought around how that's done, where unions can take control of their financial destiny and just get ahead of the curve. We've helped reactively, where they've had their payroll deduction shut down, and they've called and said, hey, well, what do we do? And they're kind of scrambling, which we're happy to help with. But it's like, why not get ahead of the curve and just take control of finances?
Right. And wasn't it Kroger that stopped payroll, like just stopped giving the union the deduction from the payroll at some point, like during negotiations, which I'm fairly certain is illegal? But did that happen, or am I misremembering? It
sounds familiar. I don't know enough of details to talk on that. It sounds pretty familiar and not too surprising. I know we've helped a lot of nurses unions through the OPEIU with that, where they've done similar things and just said, okay, you have 24 or 48 hours to respond, or Kroger specifically. It sounds familiar, but I don't know enough on it to speak on it. But yeah, it's okay. So
this is actually, it looks like this happened quite a while ago. December 6, 2020. Last week we notified UFCW Local 455 that with the pay period beginning November 29, we will no longer deduct union dues, initiation fees, et cetera, et cetera.
Which goes to your point about the power that employers have when you're relying on payroll deduction.
Right.
Because if you just totally stop the flow of funds to a union, that's like a big deal.
Yeah, they're done, right? And it's wild to me too. And I actually was talking to a friend of mine who owns a very union friendly business here in Seattle, and he was saying, well, wait, man, it'd be awesome to work with a system like this, to not just say, hey, we want to stop doing it. He's like, we're happy to do it. But they have a team of like 6 people that handles only that, right? So they're basically taking the money and then remitting it to the appropriate locals. And he's like, we're happy to do it, but there has to be a better way that costs us less money, which we could then put back into our employees. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Right. So, I know that's not necessarily always been part of the conversation, where it's just been used as such a weapon. But to me, overall, it seems like if the employer doesn't enjoy doing it, it costs them a lot of money and time that could go back to employees. If the employees don't know it's happening, or they don't have control of it with either the checkoff or the authorization, and then the union has the possibility of just being defunded immediately, like, why not do something else?
And now the emergency response type transition, you could imagine, I mean, anybody that has to do anything in a rushed manner, you could imagine that presents some difficulties. What what has been your experience in the sort of emergency transition? I
guess glass half full. Fortunately, throughout my life, I've had a lot of scenarios like that where, you can kind of, when you talk to somebody, you can kind of spot something's not right, I guess you could say. And so I've talked to some people who called in and we started talking and you could tell they were pretty frantic and it's like, hey, what's going on? So you get down to it. And the beauty of that is it's kind of saying, hey, we're here for you and on your side and we can do this in, 24 hours tops, right? And I think a lot of times when, there's not necessarily fear of technology or people just are getting into a system they don't know about, right? Where they're saying, how can we possibly replace this whole thing, in this period of time? But really, we could have everything set up in an hour, right? But I like to say 24 hours just because, but that can all happen. We can help with the communications side of it, emailing people with tracking. I think overall it actually years ago was a certified grief counselor through a local hospital here as part of a program I helped with. And so I think that training helped as well of saying, hey, you're going through it right now, which I get, and I think step one is saying, hey, you want to hear people out always in general, right? Listening is great. I recommend everybody try it out more, listening. Shout out to listening. But within that, it's saying, hey, okay, I hear you. What's going on? We're on your side. It's the technology, it's all that. But to me, that's always an element that I pride myself in, is saying, hey, we're on your team and you have people here who actually, care and are here to help. So,
and now you can get the system set up in 24 hours, but how long has it taken the union to actually transition all of their members to that system in the sort of emergency response situation?
I think the craziest one we saw the fastest was in Hawaii. There's a nurses union there where the same day they got the majority of people to make their payment that day. Wow. So, and then over the course of a few days, I think it was a couple days that they got everybody. They were on it. They had it rocking. I think it depends, right? But pretty quickly. And then the first few we helped with, and then they went back to negotiations and allowed them to stay together. And they said, hey, well, good news, we have a new contract, but bad news, we have to turn the system off. And I said, well, why? Why did you? And they go, well, part of the new contract is payroll deduction. And I said, well, why? And they said, oh, well, guess we hadn't thought of that. So I think this was like 2 years ago, right? Where I think it's just so ingrained of like, this is what you do. And they said, well, damn, yeah, we'll think about that in the future. So that's what kind of put me on to just the overall like ideology of the whole process, right? And how things are ingrained, where I've kind of been, little sensitive to talk about this until now, right? To really learn kind of the process, learn what's going on. And now that the threat seems greater than ever, it seems like the right time to talk about it, right? To say, hey, why are people doing this? Why not think of something else, right? So That's kind of the long answer to that question. But basically then those people we helped with, then they said, okay, well, we don't need the service anymore because we've gone back to payroll deduction. So hopefully they don't get put into the same situation a few years down the road. But fool me once, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Well, and that's pretty amazing that they were able to do that in such a short period of time. But I imagine for them that was a very stressful short period of time, and there you can have a much more leisurely, calm transition if you're not literally worried about funding your entire operation.
And I think the great thing, to echo a point you made earlier, is knowing if they're working with you guys at Unionly, that y'all will be advocates for them. It's more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. You're really there to support the union through the transition and make it as seamless as possible so that they can continue to do the work for their membership.
You got it. Yep. No, it's and I like to say that. I like to say, talk is cheap, right? Anybody can just say that, but ask anybody we work with. I take great pride in that, right? Where if I'm going to say something, better believe I'm going to back it up. So, and that's really why we do this. And if you're going to do anything, if you can make an impact and really help people, that's what we're trying to do. So.
Absolutely.
And y'all are helping several unions across the U.S. Can you tell us again? I know that you did last time, but how many unions and membership-based organizations are y'all working with right now?
It's close to 500 individual locals around the country,
Wow.
ranging from 40 members to 50,000 members individually. So. Anybody,
Wow.
we take all comers, right? So, it's, I think it's like anything, it's a trust play, right? Where, we first start out and people are like, hey, who is this guy? Why should we talk to them? Sure. But I think as we've, word's gotten out, it's like, oh, they actually are here to help us. And, we've been fortunate to have the, success and work with the people we do, but obviously there's more to help with. So.
Do you have any estimate on the number of union members that pay dues through Unionly?
I could get back to you on that. It's not necessarily right now. I mean, we could look at the overall transactions, but I want to say it's around 300,000 to 400,000. Roughly, maybe that might be high. That might be a little bit high, but it's over 100,000, I'd say. So.
That's fantastic.
300,000 or so union members across 400 locals. Across almost 500 locals, you said. Across almost 500 locals.
That's pretty impressive.
That's pretty impressive, and I think being able to service that many people, and them continuing to stay with y'all, I think that speaks to a certain amount of trust and ability to perform. So, and we've certainly been happy with.
Yes,
with what
we definitely appreciate the work that you do on our behalf. And
absolutely, it's cool. So I need to get some of the merch myself. Get the hat.
Just stay tuned for the new shirt that's coming.
Okay, all right, I like it. We also, one thing to put out too is we also have a very strict data confidentiality policy, and that we also explicitly state that we do not share, sell, or profit off of data. Right? If you want to go to the hilarious part of most websites, if the question is, do you sell or profit off of our data, which is a yes or no question, right? What you'll get usually is like a 16-page, soliloquy on the world of communication and the internet, and it doesn't say no.
Right.
And in a yes or no question, if you're not saying no. So to me, I've always thought that's just ridiculous. So I say, we say, no, we do not. So
perfect. Fantastic.
And that's important to folks. And, everything's confidential. We don't share, sell, or profit off information as well. So we really mean what we're doing,
Scott Heric, founder and CEO of Teamsters Represented Unionly. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Yep.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.